Welcome to the Mike and Doug Show. I'm Doug. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Doug, how are you today?
Well, I'm thrilled because just trying to keep up with the miners, you dug again so deep that you came up in a Zambian emerald mine, which as soon as you popped up, there were a bunch of Rothschilds standing around. I mean, this is really getting to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
quite a coincidence with you and those miners.
I know it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, because who would have known? I had no idea. Though I do remember, since I do today and tend to thoroughly bash Elon Musk. I'll try to be nice, but as you know, that's not really very possible for me. But good old Elon Musk's daddy, the emerald miner who was aligned with the Rothschilds. They had so much money that he once made a statement to the public that the safe at home was so filled with money they couldn't close the door of the safe.
Yeah.
That's that's how ridiculous.
Well, by the way, he claims he gaslights and says that it's not true. But what we've learned is that he's quite a gaslighter. He's always involved with saying exactly the opposite of something that's true.
Well, he learned that from George Soros. I mean, George Soros, to control markets, would tell you what he's going to do, and if then you were supposed to follow him because he's a world leader. He's a member of the World Economic Forum, so you should definitely listen to his economic advice. These predator economic
Oh,
advisors.
I have a question. I'm just looking at your new background, and is that a situation where you're going to take a long walk off a short pier?
This is here for Elon. I'm inviting Elon to take a short or a long walk on my strip here because he is such a fraud. I think it'd be like the testing of the witches in the old days. You'd weigh the witch against a duck, and if the witch weighed more than the duck, then she was obviously a witch. Well, if we're going to weigh Elon Musk, the other day I think did I put up his name for the analysis of the seven deadly sins and the demons that associated with him?
You
Because
did.
if we went down the list with him, oh, he is superlative in every area. But the thing is, I know very intelligent people who believe that Elon Musk really is a technological savior of our age who takes patents and gives them away for free to everyone. And everything's open AI. It's the name of one of his companies. And,
Yep.
he's going to put a Neuralink chip in his head, though
Hmm.
it kills everything that they try doing it to. I mean, this is a guy we should trust, right?
Yep. That's gaslighting extraordinaire.
So what's the truth of the matter?
Well, I didn't know anything about him before this analysis, and the the first telltale sign there's something wrong with his story is that his Wikipedia is 96 pages long. It's almost one of the longest Wikipedias out there in being published, and the Wikipedia gets so detailed. They even talk about girls he dated and never married. I mean, when you see that level of specificity in propaganda, you know you're onto something.
Everything is propaganda with him. Everything's a narrative. Basically, he's a complete fraud. As far as I can tell, you made a wonderful list in your expose on him with your staff writers there at Americans for Innovation. And as you go down the list, you're going, oh, yeah, well, that was a complete failure. Oh, that was a failure. They said that the only code that he ever wrote was for that second company, X.com. And that when the company bought X.com, they looked at the code and they had to throw it away. It was useless.
I think they just tried to make it look like he was a programmer in the story, but I don't. He doesn't have any kind of education that would say he was a programmer. I mean, his education is
Well,
pathetic, and it talks
he
about all these universities that he was attended for. The shortest was 2 days. That was Stanford.
He has he failed in some of the best universities in America, and that he ended up
Right.
always going to a CIA school and even failing at those, and ended up at Wharton's business.
Well, let me review that. University of Pretoria, he was there for 5 months. Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, 2 years. He went to University of Pennsylvania and Wharton, and supposedly in 3 years got 2 degrees, one in physics and one in economics. And then now UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, is even arguing with him about when he got his degrees. So Here's controversy there. And then he went out to Stanford, was there 2 days, and then decided to take part in the internet boom. And that's the story of his education. So he has no skill. He has no anything. He has nothing in his resume to say that he has any technical knowledge.
He's like Bill Gates, who we are supposed to believe is the greatest programmer in the universe, sent to us probably from alien planets. But Bill Gates, I don't think he can write a single line of code. And when you hear him speak, he obviously is extremely diminished in his IQ. Same thing with Elon Musk. Ultra same thing with Mark of the Zucker Beast. You can see that Peter Thiel may have a little bit going on. Eric Schmidt was certainly a wicked and a very real person. He wasn't a cardboard cutout. But as you look at these Silicon Valley heroes,
Peter Thiel doesn't.
No, Peter, I can't tell anything about Peter Thiel.
No.
He was in the you always say he's in the PayPal mafia, right?
Mafia. So was Elon Musk.
I mean, they basically just kept merging these little groups that they had for doing what? We as programmers in 1972, this is what we decided. We decided if we're going to program, well, then don't be stupid. Get into moving money online where you simply extract a little bit of money for moving it, create a program that does it, and then every time you move money for somebody, you get paid for it. Hello.
Okay, so that's a clue to our overall theme in that who's really running these people. And as we have been discussing this revelation about Solomon's gold and the fact that anciently Babylonian bankers who embraced a polytheistic pagan religion were in fact the ones taking over the world through banking and through merchant trading. We now could see with Elon Musk and people like Peter Thiel and James W. Breyer and Mark Zuckerberg and who else? The list is long.
John
McAfee, yeah. So we see all these guys who centered around taking orders from bankers to make sure that the hijacking of the banking transaction systems were complete and they were moved into the internet. That's what we see current, because that's when we came on the scene, when we were inventing what is now social media. I had actually rebuilt AT&T's email system. So what we saw there now looking back is we saw how these guys were planning on taking control of all modern communication and the banking transactions. Because one of the parts of Bell Labs that we competed against and won was also the group that was handling AT&T's electronic data interchange system, or EDI, which was basically a methodization of online transactions, especially invoices and commercial transactions. So we didn't pay a lot of attention to that, although we supported their electronic system through the email system. What we can see now is their plan to take over the modern internet was flawed, was hopelessly flawed in an approach called groupware. And that was in the 1990s. And I saw that. I said, oh, we can do this better. I went underground. I hired my own programmers. I raised my own money. And we actually started working on how to do collaboration in a scaled way through the internet. Nobody in Microsoft or IBM or AT&T or Sun Microsystems or Lotus Notes was thinking that way. And so I think when we came out of the chute, that was what was so super. They were shocked when we actually went and met with Professor James Chandler, who was their advisor. Little did we know at the time, but they were shocked that somebody had figured out how to do it a better way. And that's when they started scrambling. And that's when Peter Thiel came on. They recruited Zuckerberg, they recruited Musk, they recruited all these people to essentially figure out how to hijack social networking and make sure we never made a dime, which is still the case in the internet transaction world. But that Elon Musk was a part of that. He was a part of the PayPal mafia.
Absolutely. That's the electronic banking led to electronic taxing for the movement of money. And we saw that early on. And I literally was one of the earliest of the people who were working on computers and writing programs. And immediately it led to the thought that, well, you just need to write a program and deliver a service and make it basically what they call an AI, which it isn't. It's just a subroutine. And then you have that subroutine run that over and over and over again, and you are a billionaire and you go retire in the Fiji Islands. It's as
Yeah,
simple as
you
that.
just shave off a little bit of the transaction.
Well, now
But
it's like,
now
oh
we
no,
know that that is an ancient practice of the Babylonians that goes back, now we're seeing even more than 4,000 years old. But shaving off that little bit is what has created this global pagan religion that is called banking today.
and look at all the credit cards. And look at Musk's Open AI. Look at his his app that's supposed to be the universal app that can do everything for you, think for you. It can do whatever, tell you what to do. It'll also diagnose you if you put the chip in your head. It'll diagnose your whole body and tell you if you're well or not. When you wake up in the
Mm-hmm.
morning, you can just ask the chip in your head how you're feeling. This is the kind of talk of like you all know Harari, right, of the World Economic Forum. When people start talking this transhuman nonsense, they're going to start talking about AIs, which there are no such things. There is artificial intelligence, but are there self recognized, independent, self creating, self generating, self modifying? No, there's not, none of that. Are there quantum computers? No, no, there never has been, probably never will be. These are the dreams of madmen, and then they become our idols. These, we have superheroes over in we have sports, those are the guys we send out on the field to kill each other. And then we have superheroes up there on the silver screen. And then what do we have? We have banking heroes, but now it's tech banking heroes because they don't talk about the fact that those are nothing more than the representatives of the people who stole the patents. That would be Highlands Forum, DARPA, the U.S. Patent Service, uh, and the whole name of it, and then also
U.S. Patent and
Serco,
Trademark Office.
and then Serco, and then the whole thing, all the way down the line. Patents are stolen by those who wish to militarize them, and always under the auspices they're doing it for medical purposes. And so even vaccines that are now created for things that have yet to even exist, only found in a laboratory, we now have literally vaccines against them, and they are in fact bioweapons. So we are always told the opposite. And when Elon Musk comes along and tells you he's going to launch a missile to Mars and get there in the shortest time that humans can even comprehend, because he's going to circle around the sun perfectly and launch to Mars. Okay, where is that missile now? Where is that Falcon 9 missile now? With the Tesla Sportster in it, with his little puppet guy listening to crazy things on a headphone. It is now in the asteroid belt. And if it doesn't collide into an asteroid, it will eventually fall back to the Earth. He missed completely. He couldn't have been more wrong in his first 3 SpaceX launches. They were all complete disasters, some of the worst we've ever seen in missile launching. The way he wanted to do that to begin with was awful. So SpaceX, they took it out of his hands. Starlink, he has nothing to do with it. That military contract created a company that he may be the head of, but it doesn't mean he knows anything about it. And
Okay, we've got a list of 15 of those companies to talk about. So rather than jumping into the middle of that right now, if I could suggest that we take a look at his family, what we start seeing is a set of interlocked relationships that go way back, and prove to us more of this interlocked blood aristocracy that goes back to the Babylonian times and carries forward. And that is the huge secret that these secret societies that these belong to are all keeping from the rest of us. That they are banker religionists. They're a banker cult that knows that they worship Mammon and Moloch and Ahriman and Asmodeus, wait, not Asmodeus. Um, and they celebrate their pagan religion. It's not just like they accidentally fell into it. They know that's the source of their power, their evil power, is this paganism that goes back to Babylon and probably before Babylon.
And that includes Kamala Harris, whose parents were basically CIA agents. And
Mhm.
she's a complete idiot. Listen to her speak. What they take the child who fails in the family of the people
Yeah,
who are on the inside, usually if anything secret, CIA or DARPA or high military, whatever, whatever level up in the federal government, because it's almost always the federal government. They take their idiot children and they put them into politics, or they make them like Anderson Cooper. They make them a mainstream media talking head, or they put them in charge of companies that are doing illegal things that will eventually be taken down, like a Sam Bankman Fried, or I like to say Sam Bankman should be fried. And what is he? He's a complete idiot. I mean, look at
right,
him. Just
right.
let him open his mouth. Every time he opens his mouth, he's like an Elon Musk. First off, Elon Musk says he's got Asperger's. Okay, that's just an excuse so that he can be a total jerk. And that's true with McAfee. That's true with Thiel. That's true with Zuckerberg. These are people who believe their PR when in fact they are idiot children who've had their brains brainwashed, and they use too much brain bleach on them,
Blaine Breach.
blame bleach. This is what happens. That happened to me. I'm speaking from direct experience. Too much of that bleach in your brain, it doesn't work out. Then what happens?
Yeah,
You could ask a question, and instead of going up to the left or right to look for the answer, your head goes back. Notice all these jerks. Every time they're asked a serious question, their head goes back and they freak out and their eyes go straight ahead and they don't move.
Hmm.
Okay, what is that? That's the same symptom as spongiform encephalitis, as a mad human disease, as we know is happening to a lot of people.
Okay,
These
so let me
people
let
have
me
their
go
brains
into
backwards.
some of his family backgrounds, if I could. Um, one of the very interesting ones is his maternal grandfather, whose name is Joshua Haldeman. He was born in 1902, died in 1974, and he founded something called Technocracy Incorporated and the Technology Party and the Social Credit Association in Canada. He ended up dying in South Africa, but he was a heavy promoter of this technocratic worldview, and he actually wrote substantive things to make his argument. And it's clear that Elon is just carrying out the thinking of his grandfather. Uh, that's one. And then we have this Haldeman background. His mother's maiden name was Haldeman, and we find that they have a common grandfather going way back 10 generations in Switzerland, of all places. And Haldeman, if people don't know, was the chief of staff for Richard Nixon from 69 to 73. And Haldeman was the chief of staff during the Watergate scandal. And to cut a long story short, in the end, he ended up going to jail, but then he only served 18 months. And what we have now discovered since that time is the entire Nixon cabinet was staffed by members of the Pilgrim Society, some of whom have become knights since then, including Caspar Weinberger, Henry Kissinger, Paul Volcker, George Shultz, Alexander Haig. We have Pilgrim's documents proving all this. And so what we see there is that Haldeman was probably organizing the takedown of Nixon. Because why? Because as we also know in 73, that's when America went off the gold standard, and also when Kissinger pushed us into the oil standard for currency. And FYI, Kissinger's first speech after he became Nixon's Secretary of State in his second administration was in Britain, in London, to the Pilgrim Society in London. And later, we have tax documents that show that he became a vice president of the Pilgrim Society in the U.S. So here we're talking about Haldeman, a blood relative of Elon Musk. So there's an interlocked relationship. Another one, the Swiss blood is curious because what we have found is this ancient Swiss blood that governs the Schwab family and the Fauci family on his mother's side, and her name was Abyss, devil. And we also know anciently that the Abyss family caused a huge, they had a mine, a talc mine in southern Switzerland, northern Italy, that collapsed and covered a town, the town they lived in, and killed about 2,500 people in a matter of seconds. And then these people moved north to Chur, Switzerland, which is just over the mountain from Davos, where Schwab set up his operation. And then curiously enough, they took their talc mining operation up the Silk Road all the way to China, where they set up a mine there, which we now can see they were just shifting their ore from where it was being shipped and took their operation to China. So the whole Swiss blood interlocking goes even farther, because we see now that they were headquartered around the canton of Bern, and Bern, it was the location of the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, where William Donovan was headquartered, and where the Bank of International Settlement was headquartered. And then after the war, those stay-behind networks of the OSS, the spies of World War II, continued on under the direction of British MI6 and their lackeys that became CIA. So and Five Eyes, by the way, which was formed in 1946. And now we know that the FBI was following along, and MI6 was actually setting up the Five Eyes operation. So what we see there is a spy network that they were setting up after the war to carry forward this Babylonian, Radhanite, pagan merchant banking cult, and they set up their own private network for the Pilgrim Society. That's what we can see from those facts. I'm going to stop before I carry on and see if you got any comments on that.
No, I think this is beautiful. Keep going.
Okay, so then we see another very curious relative on his mother's side, and we see common blood with a British general during the Revolution by the name of Sir Frederick Haldeman. And Sir Frederick was a mercenary from Switzerland, from the canton of Bern. And we see that he was a mercenary that worked in various kingdoms in Europe. And then eventually he was hired by the British. He was sent over here before the American Revolution, and was made the governor of Quebec. And during the Revolutionary War, as the governor of Quebec, he was the handler for the spy network in the American Revolution, which included Alexander Hamilton, who we now have proof was spy number 7 for the British, and that his father-in-law, Philip Schuyler, who was also a general, was spy number 2. And as we now know, at that time, Alexander Hamilton was setting up the banking for the post-revolutionary American money system. And what did he do? He set up 4 banks, 3 of which, they're all still around. And he then brought in Rothschild money, basically. There were other families involved too, but he brought in this British money in setting up our financial system. So that's proof. We never won the American Revolution. They just took it a different way, and they took it into banking. This demon from the Babylon, the Babylon Radhanite demons set up our banking system. And that's what we've been suffering from ever since that day. Just today, I can point out that Hamilton set up the Bank of North America, which is now Wells Fargo Bank, the First Bank of the United States, which is now BNY, HSBC, Barings, and Rothschild, Manhattan Bank, which is now JP Morgan Chase, with their data centers just down the road from me, and the Bank of New York, which is now BNY Mellon. So all of these banks are still there, still applying the trade of this demon within the Babylonian Radhanite religion. And that we have to realize these aren't just kind of generic secular guys who just decide they want to get into banking and get a piece of the action. No, they want to control every aspect of our lives through banking, and they learned that trade over 4,000 years ago. And once they learned it, they used the Solomon's gold from the Ophir mines of what is now Rhodesia in South Africa, and they used that gold to basically ply their agenda, their religion, up until this very day. Now, there's an interesting University of Pennsylvania article that's just out, and it's trying to compare Elon Musk to Alfred Escher. And if you recall the research on Alfred Escher from the Klaus Schwab investigation, Alfred Escher was a partner with Klaus Schwab's father and family in the setup of every monopoly in Switzerland today, including Credit Suisse, Swiss Life. His relative was a founder of the Swiss Canton system. He was a founder of ETH, which is Klaus Schwab's technical university. By the way, his dad, Eugene, who was the Nazi engineer, actually built a nuclear reactor underneath ETH University. And they also built heavy industry, railroads, and Swiss taxation. And so we see University of Pennsylvania trying to compare Elon Musk to this 19th century figure, Alfred Escher. Escher Weiss, by the way, was a company that Eugene Schwab was the manager for up in Ravensburg in Germany, and Klaus worked for as well. So now we see UPenn trying to create this narrative that Elon Musk is of similar stature. And whether he was or whether he wasn't is irrelevant. The whole narrative around Elon Musk is interlocked with this Swiss demon. That's what we see. Now, a couple more interesting things. On his father's side, his great-grandfather was a British bricklayer. And he emigrated to South Africa right after the Second Boer War, and has no other distinguishing achievements. He died a bricklayer. In fact, we have his record of his death. And then we see that his son, Elon's grandfather, was a army in the South African. He was in the South African army during World War II, and this is literal. He was actually stationed inside an underground De Beers diamond mine. So there you've got and he was a manager of part of the operations within that diamond mine, which on paper they were supposedly repairing army vehicles for the war, but it just doesn't make sense. Why would they put that in a diamond mine like that? I think what was really happening is they were protecting the De Beers interests in these mines during World War II, because what we see subsequently is that this mine was actually a source for many of the largest diamonds in the world, including the crown jewels in England. So then his father, whose name is Errol Musk, then was given a half interest in a Zambian emerald mine, which was owned by De Beers. And so here we've got the grandson of a bricklayer all of a sudden being given half interest in a mine. And I think sometime during that time is probably when they discovered that this son, Elon Musk, was probably a good candidate for brainwashing and grooming as they move forward in their banking conspiracy throughout the world. And so he was given amazing amounts of value in this company, and current records from this company show that it is heavily invested in U.S. Treasuries. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars in U.S. Treasuries. And this is Elon's dad, who's still around. So what we see is a lot of gaslighting, a lot of relationships with the merchant banker world, and we can see that Elon is nothing but a cardboard cutout. Because then, if we get to Elon, we start getting some very interesting views of his supposed achievements in commerce. But I'm going to stop there.
Well, the thing is, when he got given this Zambian emerald mine, De Beers, you might clarify who De Beers means. Those are Rothschilds.
Rothschilds.
These are Cecil Rhodes, the people who inherited Cecil Rhodes' criminality.
Yeah, Cecil Rhodes was the founder of De Beers, and M. Rothschild was his chief investor.
So all of a sudden, Errol Musk becomes friends with the richest people in the world, and they give him an emerald mine, which could be fake, might not be fake, but the point is they shuffled a lot of money through it. And so basically, what is he, just laundering money for them?
Well, as we have discovered from the mining analysis of Lord Michael Farmer, Candace Owens' new father-in-law, diamond mines of any kind are great excuses to launder money, because you really don't have to have the actual evidence of you just need some expert to say there's diamonds or gold or emeralds in the ground, and so then you get an excuse for somebody to leverage that and put a bunch of dirty money into the mine to clean it up and make it a part of the stock.
And this is the scumbag. I mean, this is Elon's dad, who had sex with his own stepdaughter and had a baby by her. Is that correct?
That's right. He did that, and that's the excuse that Elon uses for why he's estranged with his father.
Well, to me,
I think is just gaslighting.
That makes the story more believable. That Errol Musk, this scumbag, is very much British in his heart.
Oh yeah.
In the way that he treated the world, and he supposedly, just had so much money that he couldn't even get a safe big enough to hold it all, because he couldn't close the door of his safe.
Well, that's an interesting story, because I've seen that story written about him, and yet Elon gaslights and says never happened. He never had an emerald mine.
He says his dad never has helped him. No, his dad helped him on a number of his ventures. His dad has always been there to help him.
Right.
He's the idiot in the family, and he's basically not been a success at anything he's done. And the things that he claims success for are just because, as you pointed out, it's gaslighting. Both ends of the stick he burns to make sure of the candle, because he wants to make sure that he makes a splash, because he thinks making the splash is what his job is all about. But when you make a splash and then you can't even answer questions about the company that supposedly you invented, the patents that made that company, and you can't answer a single decent question that anyone asks you about it, then it's obviously a fraud.
Well, speaking of patents, I was going to get to that, but since you bring it up, just recently in September of last year, Jay Leno was taking a tour of the SpaceX factory, and Elon was giving him the tour. And in a 27-second clip, Elon made some, they're not shocking to me, but they're shocking statements, and it's gaslighting, because on the one hand, he told Jay that he thought all patents were for the weak. And then he carried forward and said he thought most patents were BS. And it took Jay aback. And so he continued to explain that he thought patents were like landmines in a warfare and just slow down the progress of war. And that is true if you were the bad guy and you were the one stealing patents from everyone else. of course, you don't want anybody to put up a roadblock to you sending your tanks through, and risk not being able to carry forward with your heinous acts because somebody's got a patent. And so what he then ended up saying was that I don't believe in patents. That was the impression. So we had some people go out and look, and we discover that he does believe in patents. Tesla's got almost 1,200 patents. And the hilarious thing is, just 2 days before you had that interview with Jay, he was issued a new patent for an electric car manifold. And when you go look at that, you can see he very much believes in patents. So there he's gaslighting. He's saying he doesn't believe in patents, and he has patents. And so that confuses most people. But for somebody like me who has patents, we can see this guy's a fake, total fake.
Well, those about the strongest words I've heard you say. That's right. This guy's a total. That's what makes me upset about him. That I have people who are literally they're engineers, they're intelligent people, they've been successful, and they still believe that Elon Musk has given away all the best patents in the world, because he's, of course, the leader of everything technological, and he's given away those patents to the world in open associations. And no. Let's just take one tiny example: the Tesla car, which he had literally nothing to do with, because the two people who did create it, Tarpening and the other guy, they actually simply absorbed it from AC Propulsion's car called a what's it called, a T0, and all it was those two guys copied it from them. And where did they get it from? In 1992, DARPA asked for people to invent these electric cars, and by 1998, they literally have, and you can go look this up. It's easy to find. This all comes out of DARPA. DARPA has what's called an electric and hybrid vehicle group that has been making electric Humvees for the battlefield for decades and decades, okay? Electric cars have been around for a long time. So how does Elon Musk, because he leveraged his position to say that when he gave the money to get it going, that he would be considered a co-founder?
I can help you with that. Because what we've seen is the same pattern in previous history with different industries. And if we go back to 1915 to 1920, we see the time when these Babylonian Radhanite merchant bankers wanted to consolidate the control over communications and telecommunications as wireless was just coming into its own. And what they discovered is there were thousands of patent holders that had different inventions related to the technology that they wanted to consolidate into one voice of technical nature. And so what they did is they went out and got their cardboard cutout, otherwise known as Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was the Deputy Secretary of the Navy at the time. And they got him to write up this plan. And obviously, because of his power in the Navy, everyone back then, by the way, knew that the Navy was run by the British. Our Navy was run by the British under the leadership of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, our future president. And so what they did is they knew they had to go along with his plan. His plan was he ordered AT&T, Western Union, the United Fruit Company, which did telecommunications in South America, and Westinghouse to give all of the patents that they had related to telecommunication to a new company they were going to start, in which they did in 1919, called Radio Corporation of America, RCA. Give those patents to them so that RCA could have the monopoly on communications, just as they were starting to implement the wireless aspect of the technology. And then, as we know from history, most of us who my age, I mean, we remember RCA as a provider of televisions, radios, all kinds of electronic devices, telecommunications. And eventually RCA at the World's Fair announced that they were starting NBC when TV came into being. So RCA was the progenitor of television for us. And then we move forward from there, and we see the monopoly was continually being pushed by our government, but they were under instruction from British Wireless. So British Wireless was driving the entire development of our modern telecommunications system. And they thought in their minds, they had to destroy any claims of patent holders, and that's what they did. And then when Franklin Delano Roosevelt became president in 1940, he then confiscated 50,000 access patents, so to make sure that they locked in this monopoly on communications and any other inventions that they wanted to steal. So there is our modern military industrial complex, all about theft. But we can see now, it wasn't them who made this up. It was the demon that controlled the Babylonian Radhanite merchant banker religion. That's who is driving this.
And as Peter Thiel said, the only business plan that works in high tech is a monopoly.
Yeah.
And so many of these companies, they get a contract from the government, and based upon that contract, they use that as assets to do all kinds of leveraging and manipulation. And then isn't it coincident that Peter Thiel and Elon Musk both showed up as investors early on in Facebook? Why? Because they knew that it was rigged. They knew that that was another DARPA program that then had your technology to now make it work. And so they knew, of course, it's going to be successful. And this is insider trading of the worst type. But I also want to mention that these banksters, these Pilgrim Society, Rodnite Babylonians, they kill a lot of people.
Yep.
This isn't some game that's being played for numbers or digits. No, this is a game of life and death, and it reaches down into the fact that economic slavery causes tremendous amount of death. From people committing suicide, from people going bankrupt, from people giving up on life. All these things are all part of their plan, and they have absolutely no compassion whatsoever. So when you look at these people, like these ones we've mentioned, and including these are second generation throwaway children, just like Hillary Clinton was the daughter of a mob boss, and so he told her she had to become a patent attorney. Or Nancy Pelosi was the daughter of a mob boss, and he told her, go to politics and get as much power as you can. And the only thing they knew is how to lie, fraud, steal, everything that is a base
or deceive. And that was what Chandler did with me back before I realized what was going on. I believed the story about the American patent system, that it's the only property right actually embedded in the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Item 8, I believe. And it actually gave a limited monopoly to an inventor if they would share the idea with the public. And that was the idea, to enhance creativity, to enhance value that could be given back to the world. And according to Chandler, the legal system of the intellectual property law was designed to help inventors to protect those inventions and be able to create these limited monopolies in order to make the money so that their shareholders could be paid back, so that they could benefit for a period of time. And it was a flowery story. I bought it. I bought the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker. But what I can see now is the entire patent world, including every attorney that puts their shingle out as an intellectual property attorney, is deceiving the entire planet with this story. This is a fake story, because in the end, these law firms, by the way, they make money whoever they represent, whether they represent the victim or whether they represent the infringer. And so then they're also in league with all the judges who handle patent cases. So can somebody maybe make a dime with patents? Yeah, if they're not interested in it as a weaponizing tool. But if they're interested in it at the level they were interested in mine, they're never going to let the inventor make a dime. And like you say, and if the inventor gets too pesky, they'll just take him out. Well, they didn't do that with me. They just didn't say anything. They just took it. And then they challenge anyone who has been wronged, has become a victim of their banking cartel religion. They taunt you to try to protect yourself. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm willing to be proven wrong. But as far as I can see, the entire legal system is nothing but a feeder grifter system that is fed by the Babylonian Redonite religion of merchant banking, and all the lawyers involved are feeding off of that hind tit of this pig.
And that pig is the monarchy of England, because they're the ones who set up this false system based upon the old canon law of the Catholic Church. But with the British, the Queen and the King, they're always innocent. They actually have a court that's separate for them in case someone questions them. You can't actually, it's illegal to bring up any questions about their money situation or how they are linked to the Bank of England or anything. So that has been transplanted to America with an aristocratic justice system of people being placed in some of these positions for life. They're not elected. They have no oversight, and few are ever impeached, when in fact they are capricious with the law, and they're just
Right.
like our Congress, which is so anti-constitutional in the laws they pass that we have no choice but to basically collapse the system and start again.
Well, we know for a fact that the British are running the American Patent Office through a British company called Serco. We know that fact. We know when it started. It started in 2006. And yet, have we seen a single elected representative of our government ever step up and say, no, this is wrong, get these British out of here, this is our system, not yours? But what we now know is that Chandler was working with Sir Geoffrey Patty, the Intellectual Institute of London, and they were organizing Serco to make sure that Serco could get contracts to manage all of our patent applications in the US. And then, of course, that process takes like 30 months or more. And so during that time, the inventor is honestly presenting their information in enough detail to where somebody of reasonable skill in the art could repeat what they're documenting. And of course, during that whole time, the British are feeding it out to their inventors in England, and probably some of them back in the US, to make sure they could copy that invention and get it out in the marketplace with all this Babylonian Rhodonite merchant banker money, and start making money on it before the inventor even gets their patent, if they get it. And so this is all a huge grifting system for the banks that plays American and world inventors for the fool, and realizes that sometimes, the guy's not interested in making a lot of money, so they'll feed him a little money and give him a few shekels on the side. And with a lot of inventors, that's enough. But in my case, I had $20 million of investors' money, and I wanted to return. And I wasn't willing to say, oh, the federal courts are corrupt here and not protecting me, and I don't know why. Well, now we know why. These people are following a banker cult religion from Babylon.
When they stole your patent, they stole probably $5 trillion worth of value up to about this time. And that was done by the military through DARPA, through In-Q-Tel and the Highlands Forum, the Highlands Group. And basically, they are transnational, but they use US dollars to basically create these processes by the National Science Foundation and other groups, giving people money to simply apply the patents that they have stolen, and then making those people, like the people who supposedly founded Page and Byrne, the guys who founded Google.
Google, yeah.
It was already created. It was called Memex. They just got their faces put on it.
Right.
And Eric Schmidt came
Cardboard
along,
cutouts.
and he knew how to surf this, because all you have to do is follow the DARPA requests. I've been saying this for many years. It's so simple to prove all of this. And so is Elon Musk a DARPA cardboard cutout? Of course he is. He doesn't know how to launch a missile. He knows nothing about missiles. He knows nothing about his Starlink when you ask him questions. Someone asked him once if any of his have ever failed, and he said no. Well, when 40% of them have failed,
Well,
they've failed so bad that they have to make them so small that when they re-enter, they completely
I
burn
think
up.
you're giving him too much credit here, Douglas. He's never tried to make them work. This is all about money laundering. I mean, look at this list of companies he is supposed to have started since 1995 onward. Zip2, XCOM, PayPal Mafia, Facebook, Mars Society, Musk Foundation, SpaceX, Starlink, Solar City, Tesla, Hoop, Hyperloop, OpenAI, Neuralink, The Boring Company, Twitter. No human being could do that. If
And
you're really running the company, you can't run that many companies that quickly.
and they don't make money, and he doesn't pay
I
tax.
don't care whether they make money or not. That's not the point here. The point here is this is a complete fraudulent scam on the US public to create these stories in order to move forward this Babylonian system that's trying to create a new one world language. And I think that literally when we look at the Tower of Babel, we're seeing there was an attempt long ago to have a one world language. What these guys are doing through digits is perfecting that plan that these Babylonians started long ago and have never given up. And when they got Solomon's gold, they got an ability to take control of every monetary system in the world and use that gold as leverage. And once they did that, they weren't going to share that secret with anybody, and they have carried that religion forward and made sure that they attached it to paganism. And then at some point along the way, they hijacked the name Jewish and laid that on it, which they're not Jewish, and yet they found it to be useful. And of course, look at the way they're applying the Anti-Defamation League to anybody that even talks about anything that they think that they don't want you to talk about. He has gotten at least $10 billion of U.S. taxpayer money. And yet he's gaslighting right now, saying he doesn't believe in taxpayer subsidies. I mean, give me a break. I want it or I don't want it. And he's good at it. He's good at gaslighting.
He is in almost every field that he's involved in is a field that you can write off your investment because it's a green idea. It's
right.
A green company.
And that's your point about most of these have failed, because that wasn't their point. The point wasn't to be creative and actually do a work. It was to launder money.
Exactly. And he doesn't care about money. Look at the way he makes it. He spends it. He wastes it. He alienates everyone. He says he's Asperger's, and Asperger's have trouble with any type of human communication. And Asperger's usually love machines. Well, he doesn't love machines because he doesn't know anything about them, and he's terrible with people. So I don't think he has Asperger's. I just think he has a disease that I would call asshole disease. He is just a complete jerk. There has never really been a bigger jerk. He's out-jerked Trump, for heaven's sakes. And his investors, he has treated them like dirt. He's treated everybody like dirt. And so what has happened was, in my opinion, when they brainwashed him, they just scrubbed a little too hard, because he doesn't have anything left, just like Mark Zuckerberg. There's nothing left in there, or a Pelosi or a Hillary Clinton. I mean, these people are not only soulless and spiritless, their bodies are gone too. All they are is just narrative spouting idiots at this point. And if anyone can believe them, then get ready, folks. You will be the first to sign up for transhumanism and be the first to sign up for the digital currency. And you'll be the first to say that Elon Musk should be president.
Well, I think anybody that reacts, gets angry about this information, needs to look in themselves and ask yourself, why are you getting angry? Because I have not said anything here that we cannot empirically prove about him. And by the way, this article is going to go up today but it's not going to have all the links. The links are, we're processing a lot of documents right now to prove everything that we have just said. So anybody that gets angry about this story is fighting a fantasy in their own lives, and that's the thing you ought to be looking at. Why am I getting angry? Because this is truth.
And you're not looking at reality, because Neuralink is as you can see in the news, and it killed all the animals that they were working with. Not a good sign. It didn't get
No.
past the animal testing stage. Sorry. And his boring company is exactly that. It's boring. It doesn't get any contracts. The hyperlink never happened. That was his made up nonsense from some probably supposed monopolistic government contract that he thought he was
Hyperloop.
getting. Hyperloop, excuse me.
Yeah.
And when you look at SpaceX, he has all of the contracts from his one
great,
launch with his Falcon 9 load carrier. He has all of the contracts to go to the moon, to go to the space station, and to go to Mars, though he hasn't proven himself on any of those yet.
With Starlink, he's asked for 30,000 to put up 30,000 5G satellites. He has been approved for 7,500 already. They're going to fry us like toast.
And they're dropping from the sky. Nobody wants to talk about that. Like, they don't want to talk about his Mars launch that went so far off track, it will never get near Mars. And it will fall back to the Earth or land on Venus, I believe is one of the calculations. It will crash into Venus or the Earth. In the Tesla that he was supposed to give the guy who actually invented the Tesla Roadster, he took that very Roadster and held it like a dragon, like a greedy, lustful dragon who is the ultimate of envy. Anything that he sees that he envies, he goes out of his way to make a fool of himself, trying to outdo.
Let me ask you something. What have you ever been in a group of engineers having a meeting? Can you imagine a meeting where these engineers sat next to each other and somebody said, "We're going to put rockets on this car and we're going to send it out"? Any self-respecting engineer would get up and walk out. This is all propaganda. This is all fake.
They showed one of his launches one day, and this is, some of you have probably seen this, and they had a camera on the outside of the missile taking a picture of the stages being released.
Isn't that nice?
And during one of the stages, the outside camera that was taking a picture of it, which showed the Earth and everything below, it looked really good. It was really good CGI. A little mouse comes out and starts running around. And the mouse hangs out for like a minute, and the mouse runs around, and there's no mistaking this. It's like when the bubbles come up when they're doing some of these things, walking in the moon and stuff, and the bubbles come up from them, or when the hair doesn't work right on the International Space Station and it goes the wrong way, or the ball drops. They literally throwing the ball, but the ball drops. I mean, we are being lied to, and Elon Musk is one of the biggest lies there is. And all he represents is the following: a bunch of soulless, spiritless, gutless members of the Highlands Forum, DARPA, and In-Q-Tel, who use cardboard cutouts to be the fall guy when their weaponized, stolen invention actually gets realized for being a weapon. Just like the internet now, they're understanding it's a psyops. It always was. All the social medias that actually made it, and yours didn't because you weren't willing to be a psyops. They are psyopses, and they are really a way to test not only for commercialism but for manipulation. Right. And it's very, very clear that it has to be a monopoly, because if it wasn't a monopoly, then when FTX failed, they couldn't blame one guy, poor Sam.
You can't have one world,
because he's a corporation.
You can't have one world language with two languages. One of them's got to go away.
That's right.
And that is the actual answer to what do we do about this. We've got to have a plurality in any kind of institution that is serving the public. They have to be competitive with each other and not in collusion with each other. Because what they've done is they've created this Potemkin village of competition. So look at social media, just to name a few: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Yahoo, name a few more, Gab. So it looks like there's competition. And for most people, that's enough. And as we have learned, it is most, even when people understand that the social media they're using is stolen from us, they still don't send us a check. They just don't even apologize. They don't say anything. They just go to sleep. And what we've got to do as a culture is get past that and start recognizing the human creativity of these different inventions, and stop allowing these thieves, these banker merchant cults, to drive our lives by using their cash, which they uh, levered way back during Solomon's days, and start doing things in a pluralistic way that allows competition and can stop a bad guy from being able to grab the monopoly.
Absolutely. Monopolies, central control by a few always goes wrong. When you
Right.
put it into a centralized control, someone wants to then take over control. It's just like when you gather the gold of Solomon in the vaults in the city of London, the demons come around. So what we needed is what you tried to do with social media, which is to give everyone an open and free and secure platform, which is the opposite of what we have now. And
Right.
thank you so much, you and your miners, for digging all the way through the earth to find Elon Musk's emerald mines.
I
Because
found
you
a few
know,
emeralds. I brought him back a couple of
it,
emeralds.
it's one of the few things he hasn't bragged about. I'm sure after he sees this that he's going to really have a really whopping story to tell us about the way that he found the mine and he
Mm,
invented the process for pulling those emeralds up.
well,
So please thank your miners and please give them a day off now and then.
we will.
Thank you.